Playboy. What's your name?
Joey.
Ooh.
Joey.
Joey. Joey. What city you representing, Joey?
Forbidden Fantasy City.
My man said he's from Fantasy City.
Okay, so this is Joey. This is Joey.
Hey.
All right. Oh, just one other thing before we actually begin is what we were going to try to do is not talk over each other, right? So we're going to try
Which
to
is my specialty. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. Well, we're going to get through it. Joey, we're going to get through this. Don't worry.
We are going to get through it. We hope we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
Because we're running out of stuff to talk about, so we need people on here.
Yeah. Okay, so here. Wait, blah 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 blah. Let me introduce our new guest, our first guest, the very first guest of the Drop with Frank and Brian. This is Joey Hernandez, a member of Forbidden Fantasy. Hi, Joey.
Hey, what's up, guys?
He's not only a member, he is the San Diego president.
That's correct. Yes. San Diego chapter.
Yeah.
Forbidden Fantasy. Absolutely.
So how do we do this? Do we just say, Joey, tell us about yourself?
Yeah, just what I think I'll start off by saying, I very basically, for the people who haven't met Joey or don't know Joey or what Joey's about, just kind of explain yourself, like, who you are, where you're from. We already kind of established that you're the president of the San Diego chapter, so we know that. How you got in the club, how you became the president of the San Diego chapter. I think we should just start with that stuff.
All right. I will try to edit it to the parts that you can share with everyone. Obviously, my name's Joey. I'm from San Diego, California, the second ever chapter of Forbidden Fantasy. I started with lowriding, going to lowrider shows by myself. Back in the day, I know in your last podcast, you guys were talking about the willingness to go to shows because of the passion for custom cars. And so I started going to lowrider shows by myself, and then when I got my first car, it was a 92 Civic 4-door. And I used to go to the street races here in San Diego. They were very popular. More imports, right around the time Fast and Furious came out. And I was introduced by a friend who I met through the races to Forbidden Fantasy, which had just started petitioning Forbidden Fantasy San Diego. They had originally been, I couldn't even tell you. I thought it was Lowered Obsessions, maybe? You'd have to ask Glenn. Lowered Obsessions, and Glenn Moss, who's actually the vice president here in San Diego, is the one who I was introduced to, and I saw my first ever body dropped, fully shaved 1986 Toyota extended cab. Still to this day, probably one of the most beautiful trucks I've ever seen in my life. Just fully shaved rear end. I mean, talk about the creme de la custom. It had no taillights. Like a lot of people have Cadillac taillights, or Brian had Integra taillights in his Tacoma a long time ago, or Ray from San Diego has Supra taillights. Those are very popular back when I first started. And he had no taillights, so he had magnetic lights that he put on, tow lights that he put on when he was driving from place to place, but then he'd drive around runs and shows with no tail lights whatsoever.
I've done that
before. How he never got rear-ended. Yeah, how he never got rear-ended, I don't understand. So I got introduced, and it was more somebody saying, hey, you should come hang out. I was like, I don't really have a mini truck. And at the time, that's mini truck clubs were, there were, Hondas in the scene, but not as, it wasn't that often that you saw. It was a style at a time. I know the last podcast you guys were talking about whether it's a sport or a family or, whatever. In my world, from what I took from it, is that mini trucking was a style that went across all boards, no matter what kind of car, truck, vehicle, whatsoever. It was a style that you customized your vehicle in. And so at the time, it was a lowered Civic, not much done to it, intake, exhaust, little things. And then I got some 17-inch wheels, and I got a close friend of ours who owned a shop, and his brother I had air cans from a system that I just bought from him. And it was super young at the time, so it was more of a payment plan situation. And I was able to get my Civic on air ride, which was a big thing at the time. It was bolt on, but it wasn't necessarily really bolt on. It was kind of make it work situation with suspension. and had it stolen 4 times down here in San Diego because it's apparently very easy to break into a Honda Civic. That's the 92 to 95 year. So had it stolen 4 different times. Finally stopped having it. Bought my truck brand new in 2005. Got it with 7 miles on it. Then eventually lowered that and then had it bagged the first time by Simone. I know Brian was talking about having his truck lifted. So I went to the lifted suspension shop to get my truck bagged.
Now,
Makes sense.
I remember when you bought that truck because you were actually not in San Diego when you bought it.
No, I was actually at the Forbidden Fantasy Halloween party, and I woke up face down on the floor in the living room. This is back when they used to party, and they would literally take every piece of furniture from Galen's house at the time where Brian was living, every piece of furniture, and put it in the garage, cover the walls with black tarp, and they would have, I don't know, what would you say, Brian, like 1,000 people at these parties?
It probably wasn't that many, but it felt like it.
It felt like 1,000 people, and I woke up face down, and my mom, who had a really good friend, work at a Toyota dealership, she met up with them and was able to just buy it with my money, but she had a friend, so she was able to buy the truck for me, so it necessarily wasn't my favorite year truck, but it grew on me really well, and so eventually I was able to get that bagged. That was probably 2 years later, so maybe 2006, 2007, when I had it bagged originally.
Yeah.
And then 2014 is when I went to a run and had been hit up by a bunch of friends about body dropping it. And ended up going away for more than a few years.
Which is not body dropped yet.
It's still not body dropped. You get what you get. I absolutely love having it back, though. The truck came back to me at a perfect time after I had my son and everything. Who knows what I would have done with it had it been around before and I didn't have a place to store it like I do now. Oh, yeah. Is it my beautiful, in the center of a 2-car garage, 1 truck? You talk to Jamie about that. She's not very happy having to park outside because my first baby, the truck, gets the whole garage.
That's awesome. That's really
But yeah, been a member of Forbidden Fantasy for 20 years now. Wow. I started petitioning in 2001. Well, there was a whole lot of a different petitioning situation when I first started hanging out with the club. And every club has their own different ways of having members become actual logo members.
What was it for you back then?
Well, I had 3 years of hanging out with Forbidden before I became a logoed member, but at the time you had to have a vehicle that met certain requirements, and then the real, like the entry or the petitioning, you had to go to 3 shows or 3 meetings and an event with the club.
Oh, okay.
You know, so like if you went to 3, because this is when we had meetings every week.
Yeah.
Weekly, and everyone showed up weekly to meetings because, you know, at that young age, you really didn't have much going on besides.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before. Like, when you're young and in a truck club, all you want to do is be young and in a truck club.
Yeah, and we used to drive down there from... Joey, you said that the San Diego was the 2nd chapter. It was actually the 1st chapter.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry, because I consider the OG chapter to be Southern California.
What
do you mean by that?
I thought you meant. So San Diego was the very first chapter that Forbidden chaptered out with.
Besides the main chapter.
Besides, it was like Southern California. Besides Inland Empire, Southern California. Yeah, it was San Diego was the very first one, and we used to drive down there. They had their meetings on Tuesday nights, and I think we would drive down there almost every week. I know me and Ernie did, because Ernie was still in Forbidden back then.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was right at his transition.
Yeah. So yeah, we would drive down there every Tuesday. We'd go to the meeting. It was at a McDonald's, and then hang out there, and then we would all caravan to this coffee shop in was it Petaluma? Not Petaluma.
It was Poway. Petaluma. That's quite a ride.
Yeah, that's up where Holly and Joey live.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Poway, and I would just remember getting the white hot chocolates from that thing. And then we would all hang out in that coffee shop, and then we would drive home.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So, like, you were kind of like I want to kind of break down everything you just said and like pick out some points that kind of stuck out to me. So like you got into the club in the early 2000s. That's basically when I got into the scene as well. And you're talking about like, you know, seeing that truck, that Toyota with all of these crazy body mods on it and stuff like that. Like I often talk about like eras that we grew up in mini trucking, and every era is different. And so like you have like the tilt bed, you know, 15 static drop guys from like the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and then the late 90s, early 2000s. To me, that was like kind of like the look for the scene at the time was crazy body mods, literally everything that could be shaved. Not so much, they were starting to get into the bigger wheels back then. Like I think people were just starting to break out like into like 18s, 20s, stuff like that. So that was really interesting that you brought that up, because that's exactly when I got into the scene, and that's what I remember from it, is these crazy body mods.
Yeah, I was thinking about when you said what was the biggest thing in the scene when you first came in, and I think you said Mazdas, right? Mazdas were it. I remember the thing, like nowadays you go to shows and there's a plethora of C10s or OBSs. Those are very popular now. When I went to shows, when I was originally started hanging out with Forbidden Fantasy, the S10 ruled.
Yeah, everybody had an S10.
the base model S10 with roll-up windows and standard cab or extra cab with like 315s in it, like those were king at the time when I first started hanging out with Forbidden. It was very, very popular. I think there was 2 or 3 of them in the San Diego chapter at the time, because that's when we had the IB guys. The Imperial Beach, which is a part of San Diego, were a very big part of Forbidden San Diego around that same time.
The S10s were super popular because they were super easy to bag. So you would just essentially take the spring out and put a spring cup in, where you couldn't do that with a Tacoma. You can't just take the spring out and and then the backs, you could get the backs almost to lay frame with just a C notch. So you didn't even have to 4-link them, you know, so they were super popular. But I remember we had quite a few S10s, we had like, I think 5 white S10s in just the Inland Empire chapter at one time.
Yeah, and they, you know, there was a few older, like square body S10s, but they were mostly the newer ones that, like Brian was saying. You don't have to tell me about how hard it is to get a Toyota Tacoma to lay.
Yeah, I think everybody who deals in Toyotas knows exactly how hard it is to get those things to lay out. So you had said that, like, so kind of like guide me through this. The beginnings of the San Diego Forbidden Fantasy chapter, so there was already like an existing group of people trying to become a chapter before you showed up, or?
Yeah, Mike, I'm not going to be able to remember his name right now. Mike Littlejohn, thank you, Brian, because he's going to be mad at me if he sees this. Mike Littlejohn and Kyla were and Glenn, all those people at the time were in Lowered Obsessions, and then they stopped being Lowered Obsessions and petitioned to become a chapter of Forbidden Fantasy. I don't know all the very specifics. I'm sure Glenn would be a lot better at telling you that, but I do know that Mike and Glenn, Kyla, all these guys would go to shows on a regular basis and hang out with Forbidden. And, you know, there was a lot of them talking to Brian and Ernie at the time and trying to become a chapter. So Brian would probably know more about that. But yeah, there was already a group of mini truckers that petitioned to, I guess if you watch any of the Sons of Anarchy or Mayan shows, it would be like a patch over. They were already an established club, and they wanted to go bigger or become another entity because what they were doing at the time didn't work. So it was like part of Lowered Obsessions broke off. I know some of the guys from Lowered Obsessions at the time became part of Sunset as well, because there was people that were original San Diego members of Lowered Obsession, and it kind of, I don't know if it split down the middle. Again, I don't know the politics, because by the time I started hanging out, they had already started petitioning to become a chapter. The first chapter of Forbidden Fantasy.
So it's really interesting that you're talking about like that the previous, like, or the original members of the San Diego chapter came from another club. What was it called? It was called Lowered Obsession.
I think so.
Isn't it interesting?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how many clubs out there that are called something Obsession, something Twisted, something Fantasy, like, and there's all these like iterations of those words.
Was it Lowered Obsessions?
It might not have been. It might have been another club. No, it was something very similar to that.
It was Oh man, I wish I knew. I don't think it was lowered. It might have been lowered obsessions. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying it's just funny that when clubs are just a mix of those few words. But so that's cool. I just really wanted to find out, like, because I'm learning about this club all the time too. Like, I've been a member for 8 years now, but I always find it fascinating to like find out about like all the, like, how this thing started or how this thing came about, or how these people showed up. And I want to talk about something specific, and this is probably next to where's the Forerunner. The second question I consistently get is, what does FFF mean? Now, there's a little bit of controversy, because I was talking to Brian the other day, and I was saying that, like, oh yeah, Joey told me that he's the one who came up with it. And he's like, no, he didn't. He said, well, I thought, maybe I misunderstood what you said, because I thought you said that. He's all, no, he's all, I came up with it. But I think for now, whether this is seen or not or whatever, I think we want to get to the bottom of it and get it on the record exactly what that means.
So FFF was a thing. What happened was there was a house we used to hang out at called the Fat Farm. And it was down the street from where I lived at the time. And it was 3 mini truckers from a club called Southern Comfort at the time. 2 of those guys ended up getting in Forbidden Fantasy. One of the guys that lived there was named Tree. And the reason they called him that, because he was super tall. One day, we were having a party. He was trying to sleep. He came out, and there was a big whiteboard on the wall where they'd write notes, And he wrote, "Go to sleep, shut the F up, Tree." And so we crossed that out, and we put no, and we signed it Forbidden Effin' Fantasy. And then that carried over to, we were at a Reza one time, and what was the guy in Brand One Clothing, Joey? What was his name?
Oh, Jay.
Yeah.
Jay. Okay. Yeah. Jay was next to me on the dance floor, and everyone was chanting their club's name, and they were, I forgot what club he was in, but he was saying something F his club. So, you know what I mean? And so we started chanting Forbidden Effin' Fantasy, and it would go back and forth, and whoever was the loudest, because back then the stage was popping at these truck runs, and the big thing to do was roulette, usually being on stage, or whoever at the time would say your club name, you would cheer, throw up a t-shirt, do whatever. So we were chanting that, and it just became FFF.
Became a thing. And it's so interesting how Joey's wearing a shirt that says Misfits with the triple Fs. He's got the triple Fs behind him in his room, and we put it on everything. And it's so fascinating how it's just become like a within like the fabric of our club, and how it has become just part of it. And I always joke, so when people ask me, like, oh, what does FFF stand for? And I said, well, it really depends on who's asking. If it's your mother, then it's Forbidden Fantasy Family, or Forbidden Fantasy Friends, or something to that effect. But if it's anybody else, you let them know with conviction what that means.
Yeah, and it's Rob Collins from Southern California has FFF on his arm really big, and he drives a bus for a living. And so people would always say, "What's that?" And he would say, "Oh, he couldn't cuss to his Patreons, you know what I mean? So it would be, oh, it's Forbidden Fantasy Family." And we were at a wedding one time, and one of the old club members, I think it was Jason Schmitz, and he said we were praying, you pray at the wedding, and the priest or whatever guy was like, "Family, friends, and faith. With these 3 Fs, we will." And everyone in the club kind of looked up and looked around, and we were like, "Oh," and then we put our heads back down. So it was kind of funny.
That is funny. And then kind of like to paint another thing on it that we as a club do a lot is F is the 6th letter of the alphabet. So we really kind of play into that too. The whole FFF 666. Like if you look at a lot of like the dice and stuff that we use in art, it always has it's always 6-sided, or the 6 is on each side of the die.
Yeah.
Dice or whatever. So yeah, I really wanted to just kind of, now Joey is our first guest, and to me, and I don't want to get sentimental, but to me, Joey is part of the fabric of this club as well. There are certain people in this club that I look at that I consider the fabric. I don't want to keep on saying that, but it makes a lot of sense that they are the foundation, the fundamental things that make up this club.
If they were
to consider Joey one of those things.
Yeah, if they were to carve out 4 faces on a mountain, the Forbidden Mountain, Joey's face would be one of them.
Oh, he would be the first.
Oh
one,
my God.
I would hope.
Yeah.
No, not in my mind, but I appreciate you guys saying it. That was always the thing I'd said to my family is the friends, family, faith. If somebody asked me,
That's
if somebody asked me outside of a truck run, because I was very able to give somebody what the 3F stood for, mini trucker wise.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what you guys were talking about a couple of podcasts ago with branding. That has become synonymous with Forbidden Fantasy, those 3 Fs. Mm-hmm. And I know that Frank, when he becomes glasses on Frank at the end of the night, and I mean, most people only know you're the glasses on period, but when he goes into Frank mode, which I think is a whole different thing.
Wait, Frank or FFF Frank?
There you go. Yeah.
There's two
FF
guys.
Frank. The
There's two
FF
guys.
Frank. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
And he brings back, those days when I first started hanging out with the club and we went to my first ever run. You guys were talking about yours being Rezo. And I don't know, Frank, if you said that yours was Rezo as well.
Mine was Rezo as well, yeah.
So my first run was Summer Madness.
Oh.
In 2000, and I don't remember, it was 2001 or 2002. There's certain stories I can't tell from that, but like Brian was saying, it was a big deal to show presence, a force in at a show, and not like in a disrespectful or mean way, but like to show your club was there.
My bad. Hey, Joey! What? What up? Whoa!
I don't remember, like I was at like a volleyball game for friends, and they started chanting. Because it's La Costa Canyon was the name of the school here in San Diego, and they would say LCC what, LCC what, and so we started doing FFF what, FFF, and then it slowly turned into Forbidden what. I would yell it, and everybody in the club would collectively yell Fantasy, and Brian hates it. You can see it in his eyes. He hates it. But it was very popular at the time. Yeah, Brian is not a fan. But that was a big thing at the time. Like, collectively, if you had to go into the history at that time, that was a major thing. Like, we did that shit. We did that everywhere. We did it at shows, at runs, at, parties. We went wild. Like, Brian talked about his house and wanting to party every time. I can't tell you how many different houses I've woken up on the floor at Brian's house. I mean, I was like transferring from floor to floor to floor when he had the Moval Real World, which is the name of one of his houses because of how many people slept there. And that's when things stopped being nice and started being real.
Yeah.
And then he had other houses, and we packed people into these houses. And I have pictures dancing on roofs and shelves inside kitchens and whatnot. But yeah, your presence was felt when you voiced your opinion, and I definitely do. And I'm hoping I'm not blowing out your audio levels now, but I'd be loud.
Yeah. There's so many great things that I remember over the years, and not even being in Forbidden Fantasy. So Forbidden Fantasy and all the big clubs early, Forbidden Fantasy, Severed Ties, No Regrets. From an outsider, I was an outsider for a long time, being in my old club, so I always looked at it from afar. And every club sort of had, you're right, it's like branding. So like every club had that branding. ST had their own branding. No Regrets had their own branding. And I remember so many great things at shows. And one that sticks out of my mind in particular, it was a council run. I don't know what year. Council run. And I remember cruising around the show and you guys in the back of a truck. And at the time there was, how they do those vote for F or vote yes on F. So someone took a yes for F sign and cut out 3 Fs and put yes. Or was it yes or no? I can't even remember.
It was no on FFF. So it was Tiny from No Regrets.
That's okay.
Yeah,
so that's what it was.
It said no on F, and then he took 3 of those signs and made no on FFF.
Right.
And I have pictures of that. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put those pictures on here.
Yeah, so I do remember that it was No Regrets, and they did the no on FFF. I do remember Tiny's truck too. That was at T100, huh?
Yep.
That's the T100, yeah. And we actually have a rebuttal photo where everybody was in little Brian's van. This is the Astra van, which is very big in the mini trucking world as well, with the rag top. And there's like 6 of us hanging out of the top of the rag top. And I'm had a sign because we had made a response sign that said "No on NR," and then somebody underneath had put "Sponsored by FFF." You know, because these are like Politico signs that we hear. Most people take them down because they don't believe in what the thing is. We're taking them so that we could modify them.
That's so great.
And put them out. Those were fun times because those were great. You were talking about having people who were real big in the scene and known by name and photo as, you know, this was before when you could just automatically respond to somebody via whatever, Facebook, Instagram, the internet in general. And this is when, you know, you haven't talked about it a lot yet, Brian. You might have to bring it up, is the street scene at the time with the message boards, which were big popular things at the time. And I think that was the name of it, right? It was Street Source, Brian?
It was Street Scene, I think, at first, and then they had to change.
Source.
Well, they had to change it to Street Source.
Oh, okay.
But I believe it started Street Scene, and then that didn't last very long. But they did have to change it for legal reasons.
You know, it's funny that you bring up like all that stuff, because I have a very funny story to do with the same run, actually, from my perspective. So you guys had that going on, and I would see that and see it going down. But my old club had a little thing going on too that I'll explain. And it's funny because it ties into message boards as well. So pre MySpace, Facebook, you know, any kind of social media, what clubs would do, or at least what our club would do and other clubs would do, they would have message boards on their website where you can go like leave a comment. So without getting way into the specifics of it, we had a chapter in Orange County, and we dissolved that chapter. Well, they were not too happy about it. So we're going back and forth on these message boards, and the old president of the Orange County chapter, I'm not going to name names or anything, the old president of the Orange County chapter made this long post about how, you know, you guys, blah, 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 blah. And he ended it with, all I have to say is, who twisted who? And I'm all, And I was like, wait. I said, you know what? It's not twisted who. It's obsessions, bitch. So that's what we did. So we made these T-shirts for that run that said twisted who on the front and obsessions, bitch on the back. It just reminded me of a funny story, you know. But it's funny how like all of this stuff is going on, and it ties into like clubs and you know, everybody again like trying to turn out and represent your club, you know. So you do all these interesting, funny things to do that. It
was my favorite thing ever was hanging out with Joey, because how excited he was. Like I'm always excited too, but I don't express it like Joey does. So he was my little like, Joey, go tell them what club you're with, or Joey, go do this. Joey, get on stage and represent. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't dance, I couldn't do all that stuff. So Joey was like the guy that could do it. And do you remember the nightclub we were at in Orange County?
We were at the Boogie.
Yeah, the Boogie in Orange County, right by Disneyland. And it was over. The night was over with. And we were where everyone was walking by. I said, Joey, you got to tell every single one of these people who you're with. And he said everyone that walked out, he told them, hey, I'm with Forbidden Fantasy or whatever. It was hilarious.
I shook everybody walking out hands like a greeter, because these were times where Brian was like, go represent. And I took it literally. I said, what's up, Joey, Forbidden Fantasy, FFF, how you doing? Forbidden what? Yeah, absolutely, Forbidden Fantasy. And these are people leaving a nightclub. They just want to go home because they're being made to leave. Like, and I'm over here like, reverse greeting, like, you ain't got to go home, but you can't stay here. Joey, Forbidden Fantasy, how you doing? You know,
that's funny. That's awesome. Yeah, and you know what? The first time, I don't know if you recall, but I'll recall the first time I met you, and it was an Ardenoise in 2003 ish. I may be wrong on the date, but we had went out to Arizona for Bring the Noise, and I didn't hang out with anybody during the day at the show. I just sort of stuck with the guys I rolled with, but then after the show, you know, I hit up Brian. I was like, "Hey, man, where's everybody hanging out?" And he's like, "Hey, come down to this bar." And it was called like Fuel or something like that.
Oh,
Fuel-ish.
yeah, Fuel.
Yeah. And I remember riding down there.
It was owned by one of the Severed guys.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, I remember rolling down there, and first of all, it was a wild night. That was just, I mean, we could have a whole conversation just about that night. But I remember running into Joey, and I'm just kind of hanging out, feeling out everybody, you know. And there's Joey, and he's like, "Hey, He's like, you play pool? And I was like, yeah, I guess. And he's like, well, come on. So you and I played drunk pool for the next like 3 hours. I don't know if you remember that. But that was my first Joey experience. And it's the same thing. It was like, here's Joey, you know, having a good time. There's all this chaos going on around. And there's Joey having a great time. And it's like a magnet. His energy is like magnetic. And you're just like, I want to go hang out with that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what it was.
I love people. And that night, like you said, could be hours talking about. My God. That night was one of the only times. So, first of all, just to set the scene, the mini truckers at that bar drank the bar out of Jägermeister on a Jägermeister promo night.
Oh, really?
That's how much we drank. That was also, Brian, if I think I can remember, the night that we brought Cupcake with us, and he wasn't old enough to get in, so he had to sit outside at the bar window watching all of us do what we were doing.
In the rain.
I remember that because it had that like area in the front. It had those big open windows.
And it was pouring.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was
pouring.
raining. Yeah, it was raining.
Oh, that's
and
right.
then Mike Alexander, who likes to have a good time, but I hadn't to that point seen him like rip roaring, and he'd arm wrestled like female bodybuilder, and then after they closed, because I remember playing pool, and then they closed down the pool tables, and they had put like boards on the pool tables, and then he was sitting on the pool table or on the board for the pool table, and we were all talking about motorboating. And I'll just leave it there, but he thought it'd be a great idea to just lunge forward, and instead of just motorboating me, he latched on and he bit me. And I'm over here trying to punch him in the head to get him off me, and I'm like, I'm going. And finally he let go, and he jumps off of me because he hears Eddie Sabreco saying, I'm leaving. And he runs outside as Eddie Sabreco's driving down, and he does a handstand on the bed of the truck, and then falls forward into the truck.
Yeah.
And then Eddie takes off down the road to whatever hotel they were staying at.
I remember that. I vividly remember. I don't remember the other stuff lead up to that, but I vividly remember that.
I'm very glad that some of my friends have good memories because I was there that entire night and I remember none of that.
Brian remembers going to Whataburger, almost getting shot, leaving Whataburger.
Yeah, I do remember that. I also remember, I think that was the night. No, that wasn't the night. I remember someone slammed the door on my Titan like before the back. I think it was Joey. I think like because on the King Cab Titans you have to shut the back door then the front door. But you jumped out of my truck and kept the back door open and slammed the front door, and I was just like, aye. And I think it was in that Whataburger parking lot where that guy did try to want to shoot us.
He threatened us, and everybody just got back in the car and said, we will go somewhere else.
Yeah, we do not need to be at this Whataburger now.
That's funny.
That's
hilarious. Yeah. Man, I bet there's just so many great stories like that you could go on about, which kind of like segues into the next thing that I want to talk about. And not to get way too into it, but Joey, you are the king of the stage when it comes to like it is a 2-man team. It's Roulette, also from our Club Forbidden Fantasy, and most of you guys know the DJ who does a lot of shows. It's Roulette and Joey. That is the dynamic duo when it comes to stage antics.
Just so you know, I'm not going to let that one slide. It's 3 of us. Don't discount Glenn
that's
making
right.
it happen.
Yes. That's
Because Glenn is legitimately he's the wrangler. Roulette's wife and all around good woman, like a mother to all of us. Sophia, her daughter got married this last week, and I performed the wedding ceremony. And we were talking about those days and doing that and having to find Roulette because he would be some other camp with a microphone in his hand, still talking trash.
What about?
And me and Glenn would have to put all the equipment away at the end of the night and we would have to find that microphone, because if we didn't find it that night, it wasn't going to be available the next day. But yeah, we rock a party, man. We rock a stage, and Madhouse Effects, we get it done, and that's those. I don't know, Frank, if you remember. I know Brian does, because he's seen it a million times, but we used to even have outfits, as funny as it sounds.
I do.
We used to have matching outfits. It was
I do.
me, Glenn, Roulette, and then I'm the worst person. I don't remember his name. Jeremy Wicked.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he would basically be the DJ. Roulette would be the microphone. I
Yeah.
would be like the hype man. So
Yeah.
I guess you'd probably say that Roulette's the king of the stage, and I'm like his hype man or the jester. Just wilding out.
100%. I have so many great memories of being at runs and the stage, like Brian was saying earlier, like the stage. Back in the day at runs, that was the main thing.
Oh,
like everybody at the stage, everybody going off.
It's one thing I miss about. I mean, I miss truck runs in general, but I miss the stage. And those last few years that I went to Summer Madness and even a couple other 3-day shows, and you go to the stage and no one's there, it made me sad. You know what I mean? Like, it legit did. It just was like everyone's in their camps and having a good time and all that. But the stage was the best. You know what I mean? And I have video, like I said, going through these VHS tapes. You just look at the stage and it was something else. I mean, there was hundreds of people out there.
It was packed. Those were the days, man. When I went to my first run ever, which was Summer Madness at the time, and I wasn't on the stage. And it set the tone for me, because I saw the stage was packed 10, 15 rows back. That entire cement slab was covered in people wilding out at the stage and the bikini contest, and we would dance, and we would do we didn't do like the eating contest that they did most recently, but like we would do all kinds of jungle juice mix off and stuff, and that was those, like, I saw that real early on in my career. Luckily I was able to catch and I say my career, you know what I mean,
No, it is a career.
I was able to see that, and I had spent my entire time trying to emulate that. We have pictures of like the picture that I have of me and Greg, where I'm half the man I am today, literally. And you see pictures though of the stage that we used to, because we used to bring screens and we would play like Low Life video, Domination the video, Surface DVD. These videos, we would play them while we were had the stage going, so that you had visuals along. And he sometimes had like videos playing. We even did like movie nights at the end of the night one time when we weren't allowed. We had quiet hours back at the old council runs. When Brian was president of the Mini Trucking Council, Southern California Mini Trucking Council, and we would do movie nights and stuff. But you see these TVs, these big box TVs, and you're like, geez, I'm old. Because I remember just grabbing the TV myself and carrying it up. Nowadays, me and Glenn got a share carrying a light-ass flat screen up to the stage if we did it. But yeah, like Brian said, we've kind of gotten away from that, but that was so much fun. But if you think about it, that energy to be rocking a stage all night. I mean, the last run I went to and I danced on stage, I had to sit down halfway through because I'm not that young man anymore.
Hold that thought.
We had a little technical glitches there, but we're back.
We're back, and now the audience is probably going like, why is he wearing different headphones? Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Because cool podcasters wear black ear covering headphones, and you weren't in the crew.
I know. I wasn't looking proper.
Yeah. Yeah, you have the mic and the arm now. You have to wear the headphones.
All right. I might rock these. These are not bad, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah. I found these in a hotel room once.
Which hotel room was that? Was that when we went to Oregon?
No, that was when we went to El Paso and broke down in Doug's truck.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man!
And he scored headphones. Mm-hmm. I scored a hotel room bill.
And Doug got a new truck that he did was in a planning.
And Doug got a new truck.
But,
all right, so
we were talking about how runs, shows, stages, presence, the energy, like all those great things that used to exist at truck runs. Which I mean, there's really no truck runs. Well, no, there are a couple truck runs,
So when we go to Last Resort, Frank, and when we go in October,
mm-hmm.
that will throw you right back into the truck run.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Right on.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to that show.
I've heard that about a couple of East Coast shows, or Texas, or where's Last Resort? Isn't that in Mississippi or something?
It's in Louisiana, and it's out of all the events that I've been to, that is the only one that has thrown me back into the truck run days, because everyone's at the stage, so everyone camps, and there's actually no showgrounds, but everyone camps, and at night everyone comes to the stage.
So what do you mean there's no showgrounds? That's interesting.
Yeah, there's no showground, so you show where you camp.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and everyone like cooks and barbecues, and then just moseys on over. And since it's so close to Halloween, they always do a costume contest.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so everyone's walking around in full-blown Halloween costumes.
That's awesome.
And getting on stage, doing dancing, and it's a really good time.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm really looking forward to that show. But back to Joey, back to our esteemed guest.
Sorry, I heard my son hit a wall, and I'm like, oh, he's okay.
Oh, no.
When I just lock him in and hope for the best, podcast is key here. That's no, my wife's out there with him. Yeah.
The take into the whole parenting thing. You just kind of just go like, hey, are you all right? Okay, good.
Right.
Are you bleeding? Okay, you're fine.
But the energy was always the biggest thing about this whole thing for me, because people have always, in my experience, like I said, in my career, so you had talked about last time being in a different club and it changing your perspective when you came into a club like Forbidden, coming from like a small city club that was tight-knit, just 12 to 20 people, and then going into another club that had members all throughout. I had been so fortunate to be Forbidden Fantasy as my entire mini trucking experience. Now, granted, I was able to see other clubs and other people and get stories from people and all that, but experiencing it myself, I hit the jackpot. At least that's how I feel. I'm sure everybody's 100% on board with their club, because everybody feels like their club's the best club, and that's the best mindset to be in. But I got lucky, and there was a lot of fun things at the very beginning. Like, this club never judged me at a time of not having my truck, or when I just had my Civic and everybody had these body dropped, bagged, super sick cars or trucks, and everybody was super cool. I remember Glenn initially telling me, hey, you should come hang out or come to the meeting and hang out. It's just a bunch of cool people. And I'm like, oh, I don't really have a mini truck. And he said, it's all good, just come hang out. And that was like my entrance into this whole thing. I had a super cool friend. I know this is going on a little bit of a tangent here, but it kind of ties back to me becoming a part of the club. There was a guy that introduced me to the club. Super fun guy, but he had these streaks that he would go on where he wasn't really interested in doing things all of a sudden out of nowhere. And that first run that I ever went on, Brian, this is when they had first Budweiser shirts. And they had Forbidden in blue on the front, and then they had the Budweiser logo, the original one, on the back. They give them out at that run, so I ended up having one of those shirts. But he was like, I had the time off work at the time, a 20-year-old with, getting time off work was a big deal because you actually had something to do. And I texted him on like Thursday night. I didn't even text him. I paged him for him to call me back. And I said, what time are we meeting up to go to this run? Because I had just heard of them at the time. I didn't really know a lot about them. I heard about running virgins and all that stuff. But they're like, oh, you're going to get ran as a virgin, all that stuff. But I asked him, I said, well, what time is everybody meeting up so that we can roll to this thing? And he said, oh, I don't really feel like going. And I'm like, all right. And okay, and I guess we're not going now. And then I said to myself, I paged him again, and he called me back. I said, hey, how about you just give me Mike's number? Because Glenn, who's one of my best friends, is still, like I said, the vice president. I paged Mike, and I said, hey, what time are you guys leaving? And is there somebody can give me a ride? He said, you get to this place that we're meeting up, and somebody will take you. And I was like, cool. And therein lies my real entrance into this family, and moving forward, the fact that I somebody was just willing to take me and bring me back because I was just a cool guy that hung out at the time, and it spurred into me meeting everybody and hanging out with everybody on like a real sense and like getting to know people. I remember being at a show that was at that same boogie, and I accidentally kicked a rock into like this I don't remember whose car it was. It was like a 55 Ford or a 54 Ford. And I accidentally kicked a rock into the grill of this beautiful old car. And I said, and it was one of the Forbidden guys. And I said, hey, Brian, I accidentally kicked a rock into that grill of that car. I don't give a shit. What? Hey. And I remember I was, hey, Brent, or whoever it was at the time. Hey, he kicked a rock into your car. Do you care? I don't give a crap. All right.
That's awesome.
That was Paul Stone in his 55 Buick.
There it was. Same.
Yeah.
I'll get crucified for that one, but yes, those are the fun experiences that I had in the beginning that kept me around these people that are unreplaceable as far as I'm concerned. You guys are all incredible.
So I have footage of that run where you were in that gray shirt with the blue Budweiser shirt. And I believe it's that same run. Were you wearing a wig, a big white afro wig, screaming FFF? So I have footage of that, and I'm gonna put it on the screen right now.
And they'll be like, "That's not this guy."
No, yeah, that's that guy.
I'd like to just point out to all your viewers and listeners that we all get older,
get a little more shapely,
grow beards to hide all these chins, and. Put on the pounds from maxing and relaxing.
So kind of like to bring it all together. So you've done this for so long. You've done this for 20 years. You've been in the same club. You've gone through so many different things and so many different shows. And we had this kind of like conversation in our last episode. Is like, what keeps on bringing you back? What keeps you, sticking with the club, going to events, and just being a member in this club?
I think I would attribute it to the same thing that people who, this is going to sound funny or silly to some people, that drug addict feeling of like a heroin addict chasing their first time that they felt something, chasing the dragon, I get this energy that I have. I'm a people person. I love being around people. But there's something about my people, you guys, like all my people, Danny, Patty, Erica, Jose, Holly, Joey, Dave, the guys from Canada, Rich, Jill, the baby Canada, baby Canada. These people bring something out of me that is just, I can't even describe it. Like that feeling of like my people around me, being able to unleash this fun that I have that I don't normally get to like bring out like in a professional setting. Like we joke about this all the time. I know me and Brian and me and Frank do about how close we all are and literally how little we know about each other.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true.
You talked about people doing this for a living and people doing this for fun. And on your last show, actually on a couple of shows, you've talked about it. And like, Brian was talking about all his favorite feeling was to be able to close up and go home. And then like to live that line of doing this for a living and doing it for fun. I know for you guys, it is what your passion is. So doing it for a living, it does kind of take on a whole different world. But like for me, my weekend starts with me getting ready to go to something. Like when we went to the Forbidden show, I was doing everything I could to get that truck ready because it was like my coming out party, which I was so excited to show everybody. And I have to give you a shout out and say thank you so much for the love, Frank. I was so excited, and I was at home watching that with my son, and he points up at the TV. He's almost due, and he's like, "Data truck, data truck, data truck."
That's awesome.
And I lied to him and told him that the Custom Life Kids shirt that has the same year Tacoma front end of mine, and that's Data Truck.
Oh, it totally is.
So don't tell him that's Data Truck. But
it's 100%
that feeling that I get when I'm with my people, you guys, my Forbidden Fantasy family. When I'm with those people, there's like it's just a whole different world. I've actually brought friends from other facets or other walks of life into mini trucking scene, and like they've seen me and they've been like, holy hell, dude, I've seen you party before, but I've never seen that before. Like,
That's
jeez,
awesome.
like, holy, like, because, you know, when I'm with you guys, like, it's like being with your crew. You know, they've got your back and you got theirs, and it's not like a gang mentality, but it's like, I'm with my people, and that's why so many times you go to these things, and like, when we're at the Forbidden Show, Holly said it really best. Holly she jumps from people to people because she loves all these people. You know, there's at our core, being mini truckers at our core, your group expands well beyond just your immediate, just like your friendships in life. You have your core group, but you have so many other people that you're just so excited to see, like all my no regrets brothers and sisters that I get to see on a regular basis, or the Sunset Boys, or, you know, Severed Ties guys that I haven't seen in forever. They're all my people, and being able to see those people that just have that same heart in the same thing that we do is what keeps me coming back or interested or alive in this scene.
That's really cool, and I think that really lends to how we are as a group too, because I think a lot of people within our club feel the same way. And you're kind of talking about how, you know, you're saying thanks for like showing off your truck. When I show off vehicles within the club, I do it because I'm proud of those people. Like, it's not I kind of get obsessed about trucks as well. Like, my current obsession is Handsome Eric's truck, which, by the way, I don't know if you know Eric's new nickname.
I've been listening to it, and I'm pretty sure that, because you're talking about an obsession. Your obsession is Handsome Eric's truck. My obsession is Handsome Eric. and Angelina, and Gorgeous Angelina. Like, they could be a Bonnie and Clyde. Handsome Eric and Gorgeous Angelina. They could rob banks together, and I would give them all my money. Let me tell you.
It's funny because, like, when I came up with that, people who don't know Eric or just listening, they're probably thinking to themselves, this guy is either really, really attractive or really ugly.
or
it's the
beat
former.
to hell ugly. Yeah, no, and he ain't.
Yeah.
He is a specimen. You'll have to have Angie on if you want. Me and Angie both, and you guys will have to talk about Eric one of these days.
Just have a whole episode of just about Eric.
I can talk about him for days.
But what I say is like when I feature people's trucks or I show it off or I film it, it's because I'm genuinely proud for those guys. I like showing off other people's accomplishments too. I think sometimes what happens to people is maybe they get apprehensive or they get like not competitive, because maybe it's good to be a little competitive. Like if someone did something in their truck, you want to do something to your truck, but not to the point where it becomes like negative. So with me, it's when I see members working on their trucks or coming out with something, or coming out with something new, it's my honor just to be like, hey, look at what we're doing, and that's what you're saying. That ties into the whole thing of like, representing your club and having club pride and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a big thing with me, is showing off what other people have done. Not necessarily my videos, but just it being the club, the club president or whatever. When I see people's like bringing out their new trucks or bringing out what they've done, there's like a sense of pride.
Yeah, showing off other people's stuff is great.
Yeah, being able to even bring my truck out to our show, it was such a big deal for me. Like, it was, I saw in your guys' faces, it was a big deal too. It was like, but to me it was like getting your first major league home run, and you go into the dugout and like everybody's quiet looking away for the first second. And then people pretend, and then they're all super excited for you for real, because they're like, oh man, that's awesome. I felt the love, I felt a ton of love in this group of our friends that could all be absolute professionals at talking trash. Like, if we weren't mini truckers, we would be trash talkers, because these guys are good at talking trash. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say that I'm a professional, but I am a top-seeded amateur. I'm like... so we're our hobby besides mini trucking is trash talking. That's what we do, and we're good at it. And I got a lot of love for bringing it back from everybody. Even Steve, who's like king trash talk with me, he loves the trash. That's all we do. Our love language is talking. So he was showing me mad love, and I was so excited. A quick story on Eric's truck, since it's your obsession. I woke up way earlier than I wanted to for Saturday at the show, and when I woke up, I saw that Eric had texted me. Now I thought it said, "Hey, text me when you get up." So I can bring my truck in. And what it really said was like, hey, I'm going to bed now. Let me know when you're up and we can go from there. And so I texted him right away and said, yo, I'm up. Let's meet up. And he had just gone to bed like half an hour before that.
He rolled in at 4 a.m. So he put his truck together. So that was 4 a.m. Friday morning. He put his truck together Thursday late evening, late night, and went straight to the show and brought it.
And I woke up and opened the gate for him, and we chopped it up for like an hour and a half before anybody else came downstairs. Completely unnecessarily, but because he was so excited to bring his truck to that show. And I was so excited to bring my truck to that show, and we just chopped it up and got, because a lot of people, so like you guys get to go and see a lot of people on a pretty regular basis. For those of us that aren't able to go like to shows on a pretty regular basis, to be able to see everybody, our show is ground zero because most people try to go and make it at the time, and I just love getting to see my people, and that's such a big deal to me.
That's one of the like biggest features about our show. Everybody thinks we throw that show to have people come and be at the show. We throw that show to hang out with our friends.
Yeah. we throw that show for us.
Yeah. The fact that all of our other people get to be there is great, but we throw that show so we can get together.
Yeah, there just happens to be a car show on the same weekend that we all hang out.
Yeah, our club get together.
Yeah, we're a drinking club with a car show problem for sure.
So I have there's an interesting thing about Joey that everybody might not know. Sorry, but he's ordained.
I was going to ask that. So, I had that same question on my mind. Go ahead.
Yeah. So how many people have you married total, and how many people in the club have you married?
So total, including Sophia's daughter, just recently, this last Saturday, I've done. I don't know the exact number because I'll tell you a quick story. I think it's 29 or 30. It's one of those two groups. And originally I had gotten ordained to marry a member of the San Diego chapter named Nick. He wasn't around for a really long time, but him and his fiance, they wanted me to be part of the wedding, but I wasn't going to be a groomsman. So they said, would you get ordained? And I went over to their house and used their computer to go online to Science Church or something, not Scientology, but some other website. The Church of Spiritual Humanism is the name of the church that I signed up, and it's still around if you want to get ordained. You don't have to take a test or anything. And I got ordained. Well, the only thing that couple ever fought about was the wedding. So they said, screw it, got their parents, went to Vegas. So I never ended up performing their ceremony. And then I performed a ceremony for a friend of the club, Amy and Chris's friends. Jeff, and I forget his wife's name, was the first kind of club friend that I married. And then I've done, I want to say it's been 8 or 9 club weddings.
Wow. That's great.
We won't bring up any names, including Brian's. We won't bring any names up. But yeah, I've done, I think, 8 or 9 club weddings for people. And I did Brian's wedding. Yes, absolutely. That was a good time. It was a fun wedding.
You and Roulette have something in similar as well, because he DJs a lot of these weddings. Mm-hmm. And I always ask him, because a little bit of my personal life is Roulette was the DJ at me and Angie's wedding.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Ago. Yeah. So we joke with him all the time because he has a running list of people that he's DJ'd at their weddings. And I'm all like, so who is the longest married, and are they still together? And right now we're the current champions.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Brian and Chelsea are looking to beat you guys out. Be careful.
Right, I know. But yeah, no, I mean, that's just another glimpse into just how this whole thing is set up. And I think that's what gives clubs like ours a lot of longevity is this communication and this, what we have going on. And
I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I say you said longevity, and that's what gives this club that, and it's that, and not worrying about the little stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
You know, we get together. It's like a continuation of the last time we got together. We're not in between those two times. We're not worried about what everyone's doing in their lives or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like, is everyone good? Everyone's good. And then you get to the show, you have fun, you do your thing, and then you just do that over and over and over again.
Yep.
And then you watch each other grow and all these life events and now it becomes what it is today.
Yeah, no, and that's I was gonna actually bring up that same point is like when you can have a group of people that you can pick up right where you left off, like that's a good group of people.
It is usually, you know, best friends. That's the way that it is, right? You just pick up where you left off, no matter how many years down the road. But just imagine having a group of 100 people that can do that.
Yeah, and that's what this club is.
Absolutely. When it comes to friendships, it doesn't get better than these because I base my friendships on, can we not talk? They don't need to be watered every day. Can we not talk for a certain set amount of time? Because I have other friendships that I've had with people, and when you go hang out with that person, all they do is bitch and complain about you never hanging out. And it's like, why would I want to hang out with you if all you do is complain about the times we don't hang out? I'm here now. Yeah. Let's get to the business of being homies and get to it. So, like, I think of all my friendships with everybody that's within this whole thing, and I consider it as being like pause. And then once we see each other again, we're unpause. And then we pause again. And it's just like, you don't come by these friendships every day. And so it's such a big deal. I've been a part of the San Diego chapter for such a long time, and this club in general for such a long time that the people that are still around on a regular basis, I mean, like I said, I have no ill will towards the people who have left because they've had things happen in their life and they can come back around. Andy and Joe from Petaluma, Bad Andy, actually called me because he's coming into town. He was one of the first people that flew me to their city to perform their wedding.
Really?
In Petaluma,
cool.
And he was still part of the club when I did that, and I still run into them every once in a while at Disney, and because I consider myself a pretty easy person to get along with, so I like getting along with people, and I don't have any ill will towards people when they've got to move on with their lives, and this isn't a part of them at the time, but like once you start having to work so hard at something, it becomes a different thing. And I understand when people this is not in their plan anymore, but it was a part of their life, and they can come back to it and say hi, but not everybody lives it every day and does it to death and beats it into the ground. There was a big thing back and forth before about, the low life video, which was showing the lifestyle. And then you had Domination, the video. And at some point it was like drag and destroy. Like I drag all day, every day. Like I drag to the 7-Eleven. And that being me, like when I first got switches on my Honda, I hit switches to go get a Slurpee. I'm not going to lie. Like the first time you get them, it is your fun new toy and you hit it legit everywhere. And nowadays you get it just right and then you leave it. Not all of us can have E levels there, Frank, but
it's
Frank got that E level with that old laptop. He saved money on one thing and got the other. See, we don't have the E level, but we got new laptops.
You got to cut where you can.
Hey, exactly.
It's interesting to what you were saying about as people. This is a good topic about people coming in and out of the scene or the club or that in general. Again, also me doing it for 20 years, you guys doing it for the same and longer. Like you see that happen a lot. But what I was just thinking about this today, actually, funny enough. And what I was thinking is like for me personally, when I see people kind of like float in and out of the scene, I almost can't wait for them to come back because I know they'll come back. So like I don't really trip if someone is like. Finds other stuff to do or goes, does other things because I know that like either one they won't be back. Okay, that's cool, but they might be back. So it's always cool when they start coming around again and start hanging out and going to shows. And I'm like, oh, I get excited. I'm like, all right, yes, all right, cool. Let's go do it. Let's go do it again.
As a club president, do you want to hear? Like, I agree with all that stuff. People got stuff to do. They got to go do it. They come back whenever, but. Don't make dumb excuses over it. Just be upfront. If you got to get out of your club or if you whatever, you know what I mean? Just be upfront. Call the right person and say, hey, this is going on. And we've had it where people have called me and said, hey, I just don't feel like I'm a part of the club and I'm just like, look, if you got to take some time, do your thing. You don't have to get out of the club. You know what I mean? And a lot of people think they do. A lot of people think, oh, I have to get out of the club because I haven't done anything for 6 months or I haven't done anything for a year. It's like, you know how fast time flies? Do you know 2020 when the world shut down doesn't seem like that long ago now.
You're right.
You know what I mean? And so time goes by fast. So don't worry about the small stuff or make excuses and all that. So
That's
I think
great
my
advice.
camera actually might shut recording now because I had it switched to record on card 2. Oh no, there it goes. It's recording on card 1 now. Never mind.
That's really that's great advice. I like that.
There's
That's
also
great
been
advice.
people that we simply told no to about leaving the club. Sorry, that's not a thing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
There has been a few people that have said, "Hey, I'm going to get out," and I was like,
Shut up, no.
"No,
Yeah.
you're not." And now
Take your break.
everything's fine. Yeah,
Be back. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because some people need time and stuff like that. But that's the thing is it'll always be here, to do stuff. And me personally, I'm just waiting. I'm like, okay, when they're back into it, they'll be back into it. And like we said, pick right up where we left off.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So if you're listening to this and you're a younger person or getting into a club or whatever, just remember that you might be super active at the time you get into a club, but there's going to come a time when you're not.
And don't get mad at the people who are not and that happens a lot. And I'm not talking about anybody specifically, but that happens a lot. Someone gets to a club. I understand they're excited. They want to go do stuff. And then they start looking at other people well, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it? And it's you just relax.
Yeah, calm down. I have put in my time.
Yeah.
And I'm taking a little break. And so you do your thing.
Well, I've been there. I've done trips from San Diego to Riverside literally every single Friday till every single Sunday night for years, up to Brian's house, because there wasn't much going on down here in San Diego, so I chose to go up there because it was my time. And I have definitely put in my time. Let me tell you what, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. And
No, for
and
sure.
once
Absolutely.
you start thinking that way as far as being part of a club, once you start thinking that you need to base your membership, your passion on somebody else's involvement, you need to rethink your situation, because I do this because I love it. And sometimes life gets in the way. I don't care what you do or what your passion is. Life will stand in the way and be there for things, especially if you have relationships or children or family obligation. There's going to be times that you can't go to things or whatever. But like I said, if you start basing your experience on other people's actions, it might be time for you to rethink your situation, because I know that my passion is here. Whether I'm there or not, my passion is here. I may not get to go to every single show, but I'm still very much a part of this club, family, friendship, all that stuff, and people just shouldn't, I'm not talking about anybody in particular either, but you shouldn't base, people shouldn't base, like you said, young people who are super amped on it. I get that passion as a young person with no obligations but your truck and your lady at the time, whoever's next, your passion at the time is at a different place in its timeline. My timeline right now includes my wife and my child and my career as a mini trucker. So that finding the balance, like you were talking about, is all over the place. You have to find a way to do it. I've seen many mini truckers that are incredible mini truckers, incredible fathers, and they get it all done. And I am watching all of them to try and find out how you do all of that. How do you keep your relationship as good as it can be? And because I've always felt you may not be able to do one thing or everything perfectly, but you do have to kind of, it's like pouring glasses. You only have so much of you can pour into different things.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and so you have to find a good divide. And, you know, we are able to do what we do, and I'm talking about the three of us here in particular, because of the people that we have around us supporting us, whether it be our friends
absolutely.
or our significant others. Like, you have to shout out Chelsea and Angie and Jamie here, because these are the people that are with us. And we're not allowed to do what we do, but they understand our passions, and so they're a part of it, you know? And they like I said, I'm not trying to sound unmanly by saying, "Oh, she lets me," but you know, you got to work on everything at the same time. And these friends of mine, they come with me, and my wife, she comes with me too. So both sides understand that there's an even play, not evil, an even. Yeah, there's a Freudian slip. There's an even distribution of Joey. You know, there's enough of me to go around. So
No, I like that. That's a really cool analogy, that you can only pour yourself into so many cups. That's really cool. I like that. I like that a lot. And you're right. You know, being in a good relationship is important too. And without waxing too far into it, I had a person a long time ago come to me, and because I was, you know, I had newer kids, and he had just found out he was having a kid, and he always saw me at the shows. And so he came up to me and he's like, "Hey, you know, how do you make this work with your kid? Like, now that you have kids, like, you know, how do they allow you to do this?" I said, "The kids don't allow me to do anything. Their kids are going to follow you wherever you're going to go. It's your significant other. That's if you need a good and like you said, not saying your significant other is allowing you to do this, but they are. I don't think sympathetic is the right word either, but they are definitely in tune with what you're doing.
They're understanding,
you know? Understanding. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So you're definitely when you're a team. You know what I mean? When this is all, you know. I was very late in the game getting married compared to a lot of my other friends. Same with you, Joey.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
not all of us had high school sweethearts, you know.
Yeah. But you know, I remember when I was younger in the club, and I didn't understand certain things about relationships, and now I do. You know what I mean? And it's definitely a team. You know, you are a team, and that's actually we got a question the other day, Frank, about that on the thing, so we can get into that topic about our wives and stuff at a later point. But yeah, it's
like we've said, or like I've said before, we've been doing this so long now that we are fundamentally different people now than we are when we started. Like, you cannot compare the two. We're like the same people by name and like stuff like that, but we're different people. So and that's what you're saying is, like, you just adapt and evolve,
and it's fun. It's fun. The change was fun. You know what I mean? Like, as much fun as the parties were, and the everything, Joey waking up in the living room face down, you know what I mean? Like, the whole transition has been, at least for me, it's been enjoyable.
Oh, for sure.
And it's been really enjoyable watching my friends go through that transition too. You know, with some of them had kids when I first got in the club, and then and some of those kids have kids now. And that's some people like Joey who is just starting. You know what I mean? So it's fun to watch people go through these transitions, and you can go through them too. You know what I mean? Everyone's kind of, some people are on the same. They've had 2 kids and they're about the same age, or, you know, babies and they're the same age, or just got married around the same time. So, yeah, the entire adventure is fun.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it sounds corny, but life's a journey. Like, that's the point. It's just like enjoying all this stuff, even the not so great stuff and the struggles and stuff like that. Just part of the process.
It is, and it should tell other people. Like, if you're not enjoying the process, or if you're not enjoying the journey, you need to maybe, you know, figure it out and enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Well, we've been droning on for a minute. I think this went really well.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Thank
Joey,
you guys for having me
our
on,
esteemed
man.
first guest.
Thanks for having me on, man. I love talking to you guys, so I could do this for days. I really could. This right here was a big factor in me being a part of this club for so long. We've talked about this before, Brian, on our long trips. I haven't got to go on them long trips like you guys to Texas, but we've done long drives together, and we get into talking about that one of the best parts of the run was the end of the night when all the cruising was shut down and the stereos were off, and you just told stories about things that you did, adventures that you had. People, if it ever ends up making it onto another part of the show, the time that me, Brian, and little Brian drove to San Francisco for Lana and Cheesy's wedding, that should have been my story of telling somebody I married somebody. We drove to San Francisco. I drove from San Diego to San Francisco and back to San Diego after performing and partying at a wedding in 24 hours.
Wow.
In a standard cab, body dropped, flamed out Tacoma.
Oh.
And hold on, and who was it? Oh, little Brian couldn't drive
because he had a DUI.
Lost his license. Yeah.
Sorry, Brian. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus there.
Yeah. And Joey can't drive stick.
No, that's not true at all. My Honda was stick. You wouldn't let anybody else drive. I was drunk coming home. That's why.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I literally sobered up in the 8 hours it took from San Francisco to L.A., where I had met them because I was supposed to drive with Galen, and he would not answer the phone, and we were supposed to take Galen's car, and so that's why we had the three of us go, and that was. We'll have to talk about that again sometime.
Yeah. It was. I was coming down the 15. I lived in Moreno Valley at the time, and I had dropped Joey off and little Brian off. Or no, little Brian was sleeping, and I was dreaming on the freeway. I remember I woke up and I out of a dream.
Whoa.
And I had missed the 60, so I had to go all the way down to the 91.
Whoa.
And this is back when Brian didn't drive slow. He wasn't trailer or anything. This man was pedal to the metal. It's a wonder we're still alive to tell these stories, let me tell you what.
It is.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that's great. Well, thanks, Joey. Really appreciate it, man.
Of course. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for having me.
For sure. Brian? It was
What?
fun. It was fun.
Am I? Oh, yeah. I was going to be quiet so that me and Frank could exit out of this.
Oh,
But-
yeah.
No, it was great. I appreciate it, Joey. I really hope that all this worked out with the recording and the audio and stuff, because when we had the pilot episode, we can't recreate that first thing.
Yeah.
You can never recreate your first time, right, Joey?
Right.
Well, yeah, and I hope you at least have it so that I can see it even if you don't put it on, because this is hilarious.
Yeah. Right on. Well, cool. Well, that's Joey. He's our first guest. Thank you for coming on, and we'll see you guys next week.